Hey there, classical music lovers. I'm Ryan, your AI-generated host, and welcome back to AMC Presents, the place where we bring you the brightest stars in the classical music world. Today's episode is a must-watch. Our creator, William Ford, will be chatting with none other than the electrifying Ilya Ram, the newly appointed music director of the Chattanooga Symphony. Known for his magnetic energy and fresh approach to classical music, Ram is taking the music world by storm, leading orchestras from the Chattanooga Symphony and Opera to the Akademische Philharmonie Heidelberg. A prize winner at the prestigious Evgeny Svetlanov Competition, Ram has worked with top orchestras and soloists around the globe, and he's bringing modern flair to the timeless art of conducting. So, what goes through this maestro's mind while he's on the podium? Stay tuned as we dive deep into the mind of Ilya Ram and explore his journey, his inspirations, and his vision for the future of classical music. Before we get started, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an episode. Plus, you can make a big difference by becoming a patron of the channel at patreon.com/Atlanta Music Critic. Every bit helps us keep bringing you this amazing content. Join us at any level. Let's get started.
Where were you born?
I was born in New York. My parents have nothing to do with music. My mom is a historical archive curator. So she's a curator, but she deals mostly with historical imagery in archives. And my dad is a sociologist. He was writing his PhD at the New School when I was born. And that's how I got my American citizenship.
How long did you live in New York?
Until I was 2, I think. And then my parents immigrated back to Israel, where I grew up, and I've been quite a lot back and forth. So I've had a year of elementary school and 2 years of high school, something like that, and a lot of summer. So New York is, for me, also just as much home as Tel Aviv. But I grew up in Tel Aviv.
What was it like for you growing up in Tel Aviv?
I think it's one of the most exceptional cities in the world. I think it's just stuck in a very problematic country. You have culture in every corner. You have this mixture of European, Middle Eastern, Americana, warm people, sometimes too warm, with a lot of chaos, but some professionalism, tons of art, good food. It is a really fantastic city. I really miss it. I don't miss necessarily living there.
When did you get your first inkling that music might be something you want to pursue?
I don't know. I think it was something that I always wanted to pursue. It was one of those things that I was like born to do. I have pictures of me as like a 1 or 2 year old, like waving a stick or being very much connected to whatever music I was hearing, which of course I have no recollection of. But I've always loved music very much, even though my parents have nothing to do with it. It was somehow always clear that that's something that I will do. I have no idea why, but I always say that my first step into classical music was Disney's Fantasia. And I do really believe that like Disney was the thing that got me hooked up on music. And then with classical, I think it really was Fantasia. Can't describe it any other way. My parents took me to concerts. It's not that they're not musical. It's just that they haven't done anything with music. They have always loved music. They go to a lot of concerts. They go to a lot of contemporary music concerts, actually. They've always took me to experience culture, a lot of museums, but to pinpoint the moment, I have no idea.
Which instrument do you play?
I played piano.
All right. When did you start lessons on piano?
I started when I was 6, if I'm not mistaken, 6 or 7.
Did you do the traditional training?
When I started, I did sort of just go into it and learn all the basic things. I didn't start at a conservatory, and I actually wanted to play jazz. Classical, I love jazz too, but I really enjoyed jazz more. Looking back, I know that I always wanted to be more a collaborative pianist than a soloist. I always wanted to work with other people, and jazz was something that I just really enjoyed doing. So my teacher was sort of a midway jazz classical pianist training-ish. I say that I was unfortunately very talented as a kid. That didn't really push me enough to work hard enough early enough as a pianist.
So you went through the regular school system?
Yeah, I went to an arts high school where I did do jazz and classical. I graduated with piano theory and philosophy major in high school.
And then beyond that?
I graduated from high school in Tel Aviv. It was an arts high school, and I didn't want to do military service. So there are a couple of ways to not do military service, but I did want to volunteer. So after high school, I went on a year to underprivileged community, where I lived with 12 other kids my age, where we volunteered for a year in the education system and both formal and informal education system. And so that was a year where I didn't do anything related to music, except teaching a bit, but there was no actual way for me to work as a musician. And the year after, I took as a gap year to prep for bachelor's. I wanted to get into the music academy, but I already wanted to conduct. I started taking private lessons. Again, I'm not quite sure what was the bug that got to me, but it was sort of like something that I just wanted to do. And it resonated somehow. And I switched to classical playing when I was around 17, because I had a teacher that strongly suggested that I do that. And I really liked her. And so working towards entering my bachelor's, I started feeling pain in my elbows from playing. And I thought to myself that the way to overcome that would be to practice more and harder. And I completely ruined my hands. I couldn't play at all. I could barely hold a pencil, but I could still conduct somewhat. And I managed to squeeze myself into the academy and conducting in musicology for my bachelor's.
When you had private lessons in conducting,
yeah,
what was that like?
Teaching conducting is such a weird thing to do. It's such an abstract concept that we're trying to teach, and everybody will tell you something different, and everybody will be both right and wrong at the same time. I do think you can teach conducting, and I do think conducting is a skill. I don't believe at all in the it factor. I think some people are more talented earlier on because they have a certain skill set that allows them to communicate that better. But I do believe that everything to a certain extent is a skill that one can cultivate, and then understand how the industry works and how to fit within that. It's a lot of different clockwork mechanisms that work together to produce an it factor, but they're all clockworks. There are just a ton of them. So you need to understand how they all work.
I assume it might have involved having a score in front of you.
Yeah,
also.
So it was the very beginning of teaching conducting in a way, which is something that I think is basic, is the sense of you need to learn how to read a score. You need to learn to understand how a score functions, and you need to understand what happens when you move your hand. Not necessarily at how you move your hands, but what happens. Like you go like this, how do people react? And also basic coordination. There are a couple of the idea that, like any other sport and any other instrument, you need to be able to understand how to control your body with an automated freedom, that you're not reliant on habits, rather that you know what you're doing and you're able to switch things up. And the one thing that every young conductor get told is don't mirror and don't do the same thing in both hands and all of that. That is training. You need to learn coordination. You need to learn how to move one arm without relying on the other, and all of those kind of things. That is the very beginning of, I think, most people's conducting journey. Just understanding how to move yourself and what does it mean to look into a score. Structure, instruments, how to read things at the same time, working on the timeline. It all comes down anyway from the instrument you're playing, but it's a different mentality because most of us are not taught at the beginning to just look at our music and understand it and read it without necessarily touching the instrument at the same time. And conducting is a lot of that. You need to understand how to hear things and how to work things out, not necessarily always having access to playing it all through.
This is kind of a phenomenological question.
Yeah.
When you're conducting, is there anything that goes through your head?
Everything goes through my head. I think for me, when I'm conducting, I'm very big on Zen and mindfulness. I've been practicing that more often, and not enough yet, but more than not in these past couple of years. And so I have been trying to get myself a bit detached from thinking while conducting, sort of having an outside perspective. I feel that the less I'm concentrated on what I'm thinking and just being open to paying attention, the better things go anyway. Basic things that go through when I'm conducting, if it's in a concert, I am at this point very much just letting things go. If something doesn't work at that stage, I just move on. I might give a look to somebody just to know, like an acknowledgement, but I will never be angry in a concert. I'm not that type of person. I don't think it's necessary. And my goal is to make sure that the energy stays high. So if something goes wrong, why focus on that rather than on what everything that is going right? And if we can maintain that energy until the end of the concert, everybody will enjoy it. And then we can work on fixing things. During rehearsals, it's a whole other story. I need to really run through what I'm hearing, what it is that I'm doing that might affect something, and how I can quickly change in order to change reaction rather than tell the orchestra what they need to change. It's not all the time, but some of the time it is actually what I am doing that is causing something to go out differently, and I need to very quickly be able to adjust my gestures. I try and figure out what are the things that I can fix by just repeating something and giving it more attention or changing the gesture, and what are the things that I really need to say that only through words will that be able to really get together. Usually that means that if I do something more than once and it didn't change, then I sort of need to stop and say, look, we did it again, please pay attention to that. But I take into account acoustics when I'm conducting. Every hall is very different, and I don't know what they hear. I can only imagine through my own experience. But sometimes things are not together because people are unaware of where things fall. And then you just need to say, in this hall, just play a bit earlier, a bit later, a bit louder, pay more attention to that. And so I'm trying to be very conscious of what is happening there inside the grand scheme of what I want from the music to sound like.
Do you use the score much to prompt you when you're conducting?
Most of it would be in my head. It does depend on the score. We have a tendency to, when there is a score there, to really pay attention to it. The truth is that I don't need to with most of the works that I do. I would know what they are. With rehearsals, it's just a bit different because I am using both what I'm hearing, what I'm paying attention to go back to the score and try and think about what I need to do in these places. Dudamel knows score bars by heart, beginning to end, every measure. He knows the measure numbers. I don't have that skill, so I need to rely on measure numbers. But in a lot of concerts, I would conduct by heart because I would know the music by heart. I might not know the measure number, but I know everything that is going on. But for rehearsals, I feel like it doesn't make any sense. Also for some concerts, I don't feel the need to detach myself from the score completely when I know that I can.
Do you listen to music yourself?
Yeah, all the time.
What do you listen to?
Heavy metal.
Do you?
Yeah. I obviously listen mostly to classical music, also because I have to program music. And so I'm trying to just expand my musical library. I go down the Spotify rabbit hole pretty often, just random playlists. And whenever something sounds like something that I like, I will just add it to a different playlist of like ideas or repertoire ideas. But I love jazz. I still listen to a lot of jazz. I have been trying to get my repertoire up for like bluegrass and country since I'm already now in the States, and this is what is happening here, so I might as well know the genre. When I was in high school in New York, I went to the School of Rock, and I still have some friends from there. So rock music has been a very dominant thing in my life, and I think the way I think about music in terms of energy, I actually refer a lot more to rock, metal, and pop in the sense of getting sound and energy from those experiences, because it is so high octane energy. And if we can get classical music to sound like that, you'll just grip people by the arm. Like, I think Beethoven would have been a heavy metal musician if he would have composed things these days. That he has that sound.
It's interesting because I mentioned I interviewed Rachel Barton Pine, and she's done transcriptions of Metallica, and of course she played with one of the heavy metal bands also.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, give her credit for that. I asked that question about whether you listen to music because you'd be surprised at the number of musicians that I interview who say they don't listen to any music.
I get that. I understand that. There are a lot of musicians that also judge musicians that don't listen to music. It's like, why? It's like, you need to listen, and that it is really hard to be so intensely occupied with music all the time and then enjoy it at your free time as well. We are so wired to attention to details that it is really hard to just enjoy listening to something and letting go. That is also a skill. And I I sometimes have a very hard time also going to live performances. I try to as much as I can, also time-wise, but I find it difficult to detach myself enough to just enjoy something. And once you're inside the industry as well, and it's not just music, it's the whole business around it, you get exposed to so many things you wish you didn't, that just joy of going to a concert and listening to music, you see everything that went behind it, and you understand what has been going on. And I feel the music industry historically, and I think that there's a lot of process to be changing it recently, especially from people doing it, is highly competitive and highly toxic to a certain degree. I'm saying to a certain degree to be diplomatic. I think it's just highly toxic and highly competitive in a way that doesn't actually support the industry or the musicians. It's unnecessary to pin musicians against each other, but we are taught that from a very young age, that there are not that many spots for all of us at the top. And what that top actually means is so abstract anyway, that it's irrelevant. Like, I can't aspire to be Klaus Mekela. I couldn't have aspired to do that as a kid. He was brought up in a way that had allowed him to go and be Klaus Mekela. But that is not something that I can work hard in order to achieve to be. And those positions are not something that I can actually compete to get into. The mechanisms behind that are so wide that why not just be happy for those people? It's completely different circles of playing. And if I get to conduct and go into those circles and do those things, great, I'll be very happy. But I will never want to step on anybody else in order to do that. Not saying that he did. I don't think he did at all. I think it was just something that through his talent and very young upbringing into the classical music with the support network that he had, allowed him to get into that. I mean, I know him. He's extremely nice. I've met him once in a festival in Finland when, during COVID, Panula was celebrating his 90th birthday. And basically all the Finnish conductors had nothing to do, so they all came to this festival and they worked together with conducting students. And it is an amazing festival that's still going on with Jukka-Pekka was the one that created it. And so for Panula's 90th birthday, which was the first edition, they brought all of his students up and they had a concert together and they worked with the orchestra. And it was fascinating to see, first of all of them, how they're different, but they were all really genuinely nice and good people. It's such a weird concept of judging people within classical music anyway. We are all infected in it. I'm just trying to be very conscious of it as well.
Hey there. Quick break from the action, but I promise we'll get back to William and Maestro Ram in just a second. But first, we need your help to keep bringing you the content you love. Today, I heard NPR asking again for donations. And yes, support them if you can. But AMC Presents also needs you to step in. Want to know how? It's super easy. Smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the notification bell so you never miss an episode. Join our exclusive community on Patreon at any level by heading over to patreon.com/Atlanta Music Critic. Be part of the team that keeps this channel growing. Have questions or guest suggestions? Drop them in the comments below. We love hearing from you. Your engagement directly helps the channel grow. It tells YouTube to share this content with more music lovers just like you. All right, let's dive back in with William and Ilya. Enjoy.
You went to conservatory.
In the last 2 years of high school, I went to the Tel Aviv Conservatory. And then my BA was in the Buchmann Mehta School of Music. My master's I did in Dresden already. So I moved to Germany. I took a gap year after my bachelor's to move to Germany with my partner. She's a soprano. We live in Bielefeld because she's Fest in the opera ensemble in Bielefeld. I studied my master's in Dresden, and then I did postgraduate diploma at the UDK in Berlin.
Okay.
And through that time, I've already started working and practicing my craft, so to speak.
Did your peers have any reaction to your interest in music?
I'm still very good friends with a lot of my both high school but like childhood friends. None of them are musicians in any capacity. They all love to come see me perform. Some of them might go to performances in some capacity, and they all enjoy concerts when they actually attend, but none of them have really deep musical connection, maybe one or two.
Since you're starting at Chattanooga. How many times have you been here previously?
To conduct once, last year when my...
The beauty contest?
Exactly.
What did you conduct in that?
The main piece was Sibelius 5. I call it main just because it was the second half, but it was Sibelius 5. And in the first half, I put together a program which I played attacca. So I took 3 different pieces and I bunched them together into like one musical journey, which was Mendelssohn's Midsummer Night's Dream Overture, going into Grace Evangeline Mason's The Imagined Forest, which is a really gorgeous piece of music, finishing with the end of Rheingold, the Gods Enter Valhalla. And that was like one piece, sort of a 3-movement amalgam kind of thing. That was fun.
How soon after that did you find out that you were Miss America? You know?
Yeah, very late. So the orchestra has gone through a lot this past year in terms of management changes and conceptual changes. And so one of the things that was told to me from the very beginning is that they will interview all candidates and audition all candidates before they will even start getting back to us. And so the last candidate was March, and the executive director changed in the middle of somewhere that period. And so with a new music executive director coming in, the whole process just took a bit longer. So I was made the offer officially at the end of May, something like that.
Did you say, give me a month to think about it?
I said that I would be very happy to do it. It was all sort of like, we're presenting an offer. Would you agree to it? Yes, but it all comes down at the end also to contracts. I know a lot of people that said yes to offers or have been made offers, and until there is a signature, it doesn't mean anything. So that took a bit longer. And there were some other auditions that I was doing and pursuing. But at the end of the day, I did actually feel that also during my audition week here and following it up that, I don't know, something clicked very well with the orchestra, with administration, with the people. I like the city very much. And it made sense for me to go here. At the end of the day, it was pretty clear for all sides that this is going to happen.
I would imagine it's difficult to program with a series that's not all that frequent. How do you get a good mix, particularly like how do you include contemporary and traditional and pop and so on?
That is a generally good question, not just for this orchestra. I think even orchestras that program regularly have the same issues. So one of the reasons I am this season music director designate is because I didn't program this season at all. It came pre-made because of the process. They needed to make decisions beforehand, which is fine. I mean, it makes perfect sense. And so I came when everything was already pretty much said and done. Going forward, yes, it is very difficult on the one hand. On the other hand, I think if you set yourself very clear parameters into what you want to do, you just need to make sure that you hit those spots. There are a couple of things that I want to achieve here. And for me, it's very hard because it's all sort of, I'm a very associative thinker. And so I have a lot of ideas of that. But what it would actually look like, I'm not quite sure yet. But I do think that the way to go forward would be thinking about a narrative that encompasses everything that we do. So all concerts will not just be good piece of music, good piece of music. It will all be connected in some capacity. With that in mind, I want to start breaking a bit the boundaries between what is classical and what is pops, because I think the best concert experience I've had in my life was exactly that, where it was in Frankfurt. They had a music discovery project concert right before COVID, where it was a mixture of classics, Bruckner and Dvorak, John Williams, John Adams, and a rap musician, the grandfather of German rap, and a theremin player. But it was through composed. And there was no point, unless you really knew the music, where you could tell where one piece ended and the other began. And it was incredible. It was just incredible because it works. It just works. There's no need for those type of boundaries. And I think those boundaries started the title of calling it pops and classical. Once you remove those, you can start playing around with the content a bit more and then figure out how to market it to different people. And with that also, there is a tendency and a need to program not just dead white composers. However, I have no love or no need to just checkbox programming other music. Like if I'm already doing something different, I don't want it to just be, oh, I need to program a BIPOC piece or a female composer. That defeats the purpose. It's great because you still need to do it, but I would rather make sure that it's part of the narrative I'm telling. It's part of the story. Maybe it's even the main piece of music and not just like first half. But one of the, and it's the same with contemporary music anyway, one of the ways to market it or sell it is not to point out we're doing it just because we have to. It is completely incorporated in the narrative and the through line of the program, of the music of the year. And then the name, the title of the composer and the composition becomes irrelevant because you don't care about it. You want to hear the music.
What about contemporary music? Do you have particular composers you admire? I know nobody likes to answer those kinds of questions.
Yes and no. I am very happy to program both really good and really bad music because all of that music needs to be heard, and I will probably program just as bad non-contemporary music in my life. There are a couple of pieces by Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, Schumann, and all of those people that I don't think is great music, and it still gets done.
Victory.
It's one of those things. It's like the Ruins of Athens is not good music. It should not be in programs. I don't like the Schumann Violin Concerto. He didn't either. He put it in a drawer and wanted to forget about it for a very good reason, in my opinion. I'm sorry for all Schumann lovers out there, but that doesn't need to be in a program. And if that is on a program, why can't I just program new composers that need to be heard? Maybe that piece of music might not be great, but you will never know until you program it and hear it. And so I have a lot of composers I do admire, but I'm very open-minded to program other people. I have a lot of composer friends that I think are great. And now I have the opportunity and the place. And I know it's like you don't need to program your friends. And that's how it works anyway. Whether you say it out loud or not, you program your friends. You program the people you trust and like as musicians, as conductors, as management, because they get in everywhere anyway. It's just like an industry thing. But that's how it works. We get friends with people we trust and admire their artwork. And I finally have a platform to showcase that. So why not do it? Yeah, I have a lot of composers that I admire. I have a lot of composers that I think deserve to have a voice, and I'm very happy to showcase that.
Do you have conducting heroes?
Yeah, I do. I think it's very easy to go back to Bernstein. I don't think it's necessarily that I agree with all of his interpretations, but I think what he did to classical music in the sense of opening it up to the general public in such an eloquent fashion is understated in the movie that just came out. He is a hero in the sense that I want to have that connection to people. In terms of musical interpretations, I am a fan, you can't say it anymore, but I'm a big fan of John Elliott Gardiner. But I think that he really got to a very good balance between what it means to do historically and foreign performances, but still contemporary performances. It is informed, but it is not trying to be well, maybe he wants it to be the truth, but I love historically informed performances. I don't think that there is a right way to do everything. I just think that trying to figure out how to get that energy going is great. And it is another vast archive of knowledge that is just laying at our feet. So Norrington, I absolutely love, and I do not agree with 50% of what he did, but the other 50 I think is fascinating. I love Tielemans Wagner, and I hate everything else that he conducts, but just that balance is incredible. I've seen him do Tristan and Siegfried that felt like it went by in 5 minutes, and I was just there the whole time. And I heard him do Schönberg, Pelléas, and Melisande, where I was just waiting for it to be over. And it felt like 4 hours instead of 30 minutes. So I don't have one figure where I think that is everything. I've never had a mentor myself either that I felt that type of connection to. Whether it's good or bad, I don't know, but just happened that way for me. So I pick and choose elements from different conductors that I think that is something that I admire in them for that.
Good answers. Hey, appreciate the opportunity. It was great.
You're coming to the concert tonight as well.
Yes, I am.
Awesome.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Thank you. Thank you for this. This is fun questions too.
Hey, it's Ryan again. Wow, what an incredible interview. I was especially fascinated by Maestro Ilya Ram's insights on what goes through his mind while conducting and how his approach shifts from rehearsal to performance. You could really feel the energy between him and William. It was such a joy to witness that connection. Thank you so much for tuning in to AMC Presents. If you enjoyed this conversation, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Doing so not only helps us grow, but also ensures you never miss out on future interviews, exclusive content, and behind-the-scenes looks at the world of music. Plus, your engagement helps us reach more music lovers who are passionate about the art, just like you. We also invite you to join us on Patreon at patreon.com/Atlanta Music Critic. Becoming a patron comes with some amazing perks. At any level, you'll get early access to our interviews, exclusive content, and more in-depth discussions you won't find anywhere else. Plus, you'll be directly supporting our mission to bring insightful, high-quality content to the music community. Every contribution, big or small, makes a huge difference in helping us keep these interviews coming. A huge shout-out to our wonderful patrons, Robert Burns, Andres Cardenas, Jim Ginsberg, and Deborah Kay. Your support makes all the difference. Special thanks to the Chattanooga Symphony staff for making this conversation possible, and of course to Maestro Ilya Ram for his time and incredible insights. We'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below with any questions or suggestions. We're all ears. Until next time, this is Ryan signing off. See you soon.